Hey, Aaron.
Everyone. Oh, I left something. Hang on, I'll be right back. Dan, do you have the presentation with you or do you need me to pull it up?
No, I have it.
Okay, give me 1 sec.
Yep.
All right, Dan, do you want to get started? What do you think?
Yeah, that's fine. We can
I
do
can't,
that.
hang on, I can't hear you yet. Are you,
I'm unmuted.
can you guys? Can you guys hear me talking right now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can hear Steve.
All right, you can hear me though, Steve, right?
Can you hear Dan talking? Because I can't. Okay, I couldn't hear him for some reason.
Okay. All right, so I guess in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and get this thing going.
Here, try it again,
Um,
Dan.
What's
Right.
that? What's that, Steve? I don't know. I guess he's on a delay or something. So anyway, everybody else can hear me though, right? Okay, so in the interest of time, we're gonna go ahead and get this thing started. First off, thanks to everybody for.
Yeah, I can't hear anybody right now. Give me a sec.
Okay, hopefully he'll be able to fix whatever's going on his end, but thank all of you for coming, attending. This, of course, is just a general membership meeting. We're gonna go over the memorandum of agreement in lieu of a ratification vote, which is gonna be taking place after this meeting, and we'll talk about the voting process and all that when the meeting is over.
I'm gonna try to cut out and come back in because there's no.
Okay. So first of all, again, like to just recognize the members of the team and thank everybody for all their time, energy, efforts, and input throughout the process. So of course, we had Steve Holderson, myself, and then we also had as members of the team, Mary Galal, Sharon Smith. We had Lauren Watson, Mary Hopda, Jeff Franz. I'm not forgetting anybody here. No, but again, this was a very involved process, and everybody's efforts and contributions are appreciated. So the memorandum of agreement that we're going to go over, it actually is comprised of 3 different parts. And the first part that we're going to go over was a tentative agreement that we reached with the Board of Ed negotiations team on April 22nd of this year, right out of the gate in terms of the process. We pitched to the board team a number of language proposals, non-money items that had been agreed to in the previous round of bargaining before everything fell apart and we went to salary only. So we thought it would be a good way, in the spirit of negotiating, try to get out of the gate early, get some of these things off our plate, and come to a tentative agreement on these items right away. In addition to that tentative agreement, there were a couple of items that were also agreed to in a tentative agreement on May 20th. And then, of course, we had our final set of proposals in our last counter that we sent to the board on August 12th. So the memorandum of agreement that you're going to see was comprised of those 3 agreements collectively. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can everybody see the screen? Let me know if you can't. So as I said before, the first thing that we're going to go over is what was included in the tentative agreement that we reached with the board on April 22nd. And I'll just go by number letter. So you can see under 1A, the sentence that was removed with respect to the days that would not be recognized for salary guide movement, that was referring to what used to be 100 hours mandate. And being that we are no longer required by mandate to meet the 100-hour requirement, the statute is obsolete. So for that reason, we had proposed and the board agreed to have that removed from the language of the contract. So 2A, the reason for the proposal to remove the summer study grants is that they no longer exist. So because they don't exist, again, there's no reason for them to be in the contract. 2B actually is referring to the sick bank. So basically, what we were trying to do in this respect is get the sick bank to be in compliance, or not, I guess, to be in agreement with what is statute. So if you break it down, basically what this proposal, which was agreed to, does is it creates a committee that was comprised of 3 members from the Board of Ed, 3 members from the NHVEA, And it mentions that in order to use the sick bank, the individuals in the sick bank must use the sick days that they'd accumulated over the previous years, and that they had to have shown, an effort over the course of a period of time to try to actually accumulate those days. 2C is just referencing the fact that an employee can appeal upon a physician's exam, the determination of the sick bank committee, whether or not they were going to be granting them sick bank leave or not. All right, so for Article 12, number 3.
Hold on, Dan, wait, cool. I was muted still, hang on. I'm on my phone and my thing at the same time because my computer's not working. Just real quick, the main change with the sick bank is that the language up until right now is that the sick bank decision is made by the president of the association and the superintendent make the decision. And if it's denied, then it goes to a committee. Basically, we're skipping over that. So it just goes to the committee. So there's more of a check and balance than just having two people decide who gets access to the sick bank. That's the main change in the language. Okay. We'll have to talk as a rep council about what the proper way is to go about choosing who's on that committee and stuff, but that's another issue. Anyway, sorry. Thanks, Dan.
No, it's okay. Yeah, chime in at any point. That's fine. So 3A, the reason why we had proposed to have this language taken out of the contract is the language that says that we can't be required to stay later than 5 o'clock for regularly assigned professional duties implies that we can stay up to 5 o'clock for regularly assigned professional duties when in effect our regular contractual workday is supposed to end at 3:10. So that the board had agreed to that as part of the tentative agreement as well. So 3B, this was so that we would be able to have information about what quote unquote night obligations exist, while also establishing that members should not or could not be forced to attend a specific night. So the idea is that, you have an idea of what would count toward that night obligation, and then you would have the option to choose which one you actually wanted to attend. 3C, with respect to traveling teachers not being assigned a duty, traveling teachers used to get a full 40-minute duty to travel, from one school to the next, and now under the new drop block schedule, they have to travel during their lunch, which is 24 minutes if you count the lunch. It's 26 minutes if you count the passing time. So, that was the intent or purpose behind that. The language also is designed to give them a little bit more resource time back. So that was the purpose of 3C. 3D for Article 12B.4. This was to provide a little bit more flexibility to security ESPs. Especially considering, by staggering their schedule, for instance, if a security ESP is expected to stay later in the day for, some type of extracurricular, co-curricular event or whatever, that they would be able to come in a little bit later. And it just was providing a little bit more flexibility, with regard to their schedule. So for 3E, the reason for that change is prior to being called shift leaders, they were called supervisors, which is a bit misleading as a label because our members can't evaluate other members, nor should our members be reprimanded or disciplined if in fact they were not quote unquote supervising other individuals within the unit, especially given the fact that they don't really have any supervisory duties. So same holds true for the Saturday shifts. So that was the reason for changing that language from supervisor to leader as well. And that actually came in a previous round at the behest of some of the custodians who, wanted to change for those very reasons. For 3G, where it says change September 1st in sentence 3 to 1 week prior to the start of school, the intent there was to give the secretary some notice as to what their work assignments were going to be for the upcoming school year. So they had a little bit of time to plan, prepare, and knew up front what their assignment was going to be. So for 3H, this was to provide a little bit more flexibility in terms of the schedule for secretaries during the summer months, as to when they actually want to come in and work during that time period. So those were all part of the tentative agreement that was reached on April 22nd, right out of the gate, before we even exchanged our initial proposals. So what we're going to go over now is the initial proposal that was given to us by the Board of Education. All right, so you can see here, they were attempting to change the grievance procedure in our contract. It should be noted, this was something that they tried to do last round as well. And when you look at number 1 in their proposals, there's a couple things I think that need to be pointed out in terms of the impact that the language change would have. You know, you can see here, they were trying to take out board policy. And it's important to understand that if and when board policy affects the terms and conditions of employment, PERC is going to hear the case because those two are linked. The problem with taking board policy out of our contract is, let's say board policy doesn't affect the terms and conditions of employment, and we accept this language change, then we would have no standing or case with respect to PERC. So in other words, they were looking to restrict our ability to file grievances. And the other thing to keep in mind is we told the board that this kind of seemed to us as if it was a solution in search of a problem. You know, that we don't really file a lot of grievances in this district. So, you know, we were kind of scratching our heads as to, you know, what what this particular proposal was trying to find. And the board knows too that, you know, if they do engage in any inequitable, you know, application or implementation of board policy, they're asking for lawsuits anyway. You know, and litigating it is more expensive than processing it through PERC anyway. So, and we weren't even going to entertain this because in the event, let's say we go to impasse, you know, and a fact finder is looking at this, the mere fact that we showed a willingness or an openness to entertain it opens the door that maybe the fact finder is actually going to end up giving the board what they want. So, you know, we were absolutely not going to accept that proposal. So
Just
Steve,
real quick,
you wanna
everyone,
add?
just real quick. And Barb, if you have something you want to chime in with, that's fine, because we did discuss this, but that part, the inequitable application of board policy disagreement, or that was something the board was pushing for week and week and week. And we probably could have gotten a deal earlier because they wanted this so badly. But it was so important that we just felt it wasn't something we could give up. Barb, do you have anything to add, or did Dan pretty much cover it? All right, well,
I don't know if
Dan,
she heard you or not. Yeah, what's interesting too is when we were doing our research and investigating, you know, after that we had received this particular proposal, came across an article from the School Board Association entitled "An Analysis of a Grievance Procedure Clause." And the language proposal that's here, I mean, is almost verbatim what the School Board Association was recommending that school boards across the state push as far as language. And in the article, it said that the purpose of that was to avoid encouraging what they called overutilization of the grievance procedure and allowing every issue causing employees concern or dissatisfaction to rise to the level of a grievance. So it was pretty clear what their intent was, you know, when it came to this proposal.
and thanks
It's
to
right out of
Barb
their
for
preview.
finding that information too. She was the one who tracked that down. So good work.
Now, what we did accept is number 2.
If you go to the next slide, Dan, I have it on there, I think.
What's that?
I think it's on the next slide.
Yeah, well, it's on this one too. Okay, I guess I could just advance to the next one.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing that they wanted to do in their initial proposal is they wanted to limit, you know, who was covered by the grievance language in the contract to only employees that would be recognized by the contract. You know, in addition to restricting our ability to file grievances. So now what we did accept was the Article 4 change where they wanted to revise it from equitable solutions to prompt resolution. And one of the things that the Board of Ed contended was that the word equitable really isn't enforceable because it's quite subjective as to whether or not somebody's going to, how they define equitable. But, one of the things that was pointed out too is that whatever agreements reached, in a grievance case, clearly they're not going to reach an agreement unless or until both sides believe that that solution is equitable. So, I mean, there was two different ways of looking at it, but prompt resolution, I mean, even though we thought that originally they had prompt and we thought it was a little bit redundant, but no, we did find the change to resolution acceptable. Steve, anything you want to add?
No, that's good. Yeah, but there's already a timetable, and this was in the conversation with Barb, but there's already a timetable for how quickly these things get resolved. And so prompt doesn't make sense in this context. So I think that's probably good.
Okay. Forward my pages. Hold on. All right, so you
Yeah, so
can
the-
see what
yeah.
we accepted with respect to absences of the, and one of the things that we did get some legal advice from NJEA, the Field Office of Research Division, about how you can see that this proposal and the grievance proposal are somewhat linked. And what it kind of suggests is, number one, they want to limit what we can grieve. And if you can't grieve it, then let's say that you want this matter to be resolved, through outside litigation or whatever. They were going to make it more difficult for a member to do that because then you weren't going to be compensated for those days, which is kind of just another layer that they were trying to add to make it more difficult for our members to, find a remedy or something if they felt that the board wasn't treating them fairly or wasn't implementing policy or applying the contract in a fair manner. So, one of the things though that we did accept is that, let's say that a member does decide that they want to bring an action against the Board of Ed. The advice we got that is if and when somebody does bring a suit against the Board of Ed, that they can include lost wages with damages anyway, so that they would get that compensation back anyway. See, is there anything you want to add?
No, that's good. Thanks, Dan.
Okay. Again, we did not accept this. What the Board of Ed was trying to do was limit the number of people who could actually receive sick day payouts upon their retirement. And clearly this was an attempt on the board to try to save some money. But again, we did not accept this proposal. Now, the first one, number 8, that was actually agreed to. It was in the tentative agreement that we agreed to with the board on May 20th. And the reason was it's statute anyway. That of course it has to be related to your current or future job responsibilities. So it's worth noting too that the Board of Ed, they did bring up professional improvement in the last round too. It was a little different last round that they said that advancement on Schedule A should be granted only upon acquisition of additional academic credits or completion of a degree program at an accredited institution of higher education and only for a course or degree related to the employee's current or future job responsibilities. Here it's a little different where they were saying that attendance had to not only be at an accredited college university, but the course had to be in a matriculated program as part of a degree program and so on. So clearly their intention is to limit the courses that we can take, and it was based on their assertion that a lot of the courses that we currently take, they believe are not rigorous enough. So that was at least what argument they presented at the table. They, when it comes to number 10, and obviously we're not going to agree to that, because making it more difficult for our members to take classes is going to make it more difficult for them to move across the guide, and that's what we're looking to have them do anyway. So number 10, the board claimed that this provision in the contract was never used. And as it is, it's at the discretion of the superintendent anyway. Like if they don't want somebody, if they don't want to approve a course, for whatever reason or whatever, that's within the prerogative of the superintendent to deny that request anyway. And that's the other thing that we had brought up in the room is, well, if you don't want them to take the course, then just deny the request. We weren't quite sure why they included this in their set of proposals, when they have that authority and right to do it anyway. Okay, this one, obviously this was a big deal, that they were trying to change the seniority language. And they also tried this last round, only they included seniority among a number of different things. Last round, they said, in the event of a reduction in force in any employment category, the board will consider employers' qualifications, skills, performance, and years of service in determining staff to be laid off. And you can see here, they included, in addition to qualifications, seniority, performance, how many sick days apparently you use. So, that was something that we had noticed too. And it clearly,
This is
a direct shot at seniority.
real quick, Dan. This is an important one for all of the support staff because this was geared at them. This is what the board wants to be able to do. They want to be able to go after and fire people based on any of these things, not based on seniority. And the protection that you have is out of our contract, not out of any other, anything else. So the protections you have are because you're a part of this association, have these protections in the contract. And the board came pretty strong at some of these things, but your negotiations team held strong. So just, be aware that those are the protections you're getting. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
And it wasn't just protecting this particular layer of protection. They were also trying to remove as a layer of protection our just cause language. And just cause is very important, obviously, because it's for support staff members, because it prevents them from being fired without reason. In fact, the governor signed language to give all support staff members just cause language, so they would have that protection, at least from the state level. The Board of Ed was trying to remove this layer of protection from the contract, so they'd be able to terminate support staff members without having to build a case against them. So again, we stood pretty firm here, and no way in hell were we going to agree to this. So the seniority, the just cause language was pretty important. And again, in our research, we came up with an article that was written by the School Board Association on the meaning of just cause. And the proposal that they were including in this set was right out of that playbook. So this is advice that they're obviously getting from their association too, whether or not they think it's applicable or needed at the district level. For whatever reason, they included it in their proposal. All right, so when it came to evaluation, if you look at, like, for instance, number 6, the support staff, they don't have a lot of protections regarding evaluations to begin with. And, it looks as if what the Board of Ed was trying to do here is actually permit the administration to kind of do whatever they wanted. Now, with respect to evaluations in general, what's in our contract is superseded by state statute when it comes to whatever language is in the statute itself. Now, the contract does apply, though, in cases where, let's say, the state regulations aren't as restrictive as maybe our contractual language would be, or in cases where maybe state statute is silent with respect to certain aspects or components within an evaluation. So in those cases, it is negotiable. We can't negotiate less than what's in the contract, or in the statute, but we can negotiate more. For instance, as an example, let's say the statute says that you can have no less than 2 evaluations per year, and those evaluations have to be at least 20 minutes. We can negotiate that it be at least 3 evaluations per year, and that those evaluations be at least 30 minutes. Now, we did get some advice, and by the way, they also included this the last round. There was proposals with respect to amending Section B. When it came to professional staff, they wanted it to It basically wanted to eliminate our contractual language and supplant it with what the New Jersey state statutes were. They also wanted to delete certain parts of section B, amend parts of section C with respect to support staff members. Specifically, they wanted or proposed that the support staff members' performance would be evaluated at least once a year, and that those evaluations would include written reports and conferences involving the evaluatee, evaluator, an optional observer from the association upon request. The report needed to be signed by the evaluator and evaluatee within 3 days. If the evaluatee refused, and upon request of the administration, then someone from the association would sign the evaluation in their stead before it's placed in the personnel file. So again, a lot of these proposals, they've been attempting over the last few rounds. This is not something new. It's not something that is unexpected. It's just common practice from the board. We did get a contract analysis from one of the individuals at the NJEA field office on May 26th. And it was a point-by-point analysis that compared our contractual language to Teach NJ and the aspects of the current contract that would be impacted if in fact we accepted this Board of Ed proposal. And in the end, what was agreed to, those parts of the evaluation procedure that are superseded by state statute anyway, we were okay with having that language removed from the contract, but we kept in the contract any protections with regard to evaluations that either were more restrictive than what was in the state statute or that were not even covered in the state statute. So our evaluation procedure right now, we have more protection than what the state statute provides. So anything else you want to add?
That's
Steve?
all on the next slide, Dan.
Okay.
Just as a summary. Yeah, so there you go. So I can jump in this real quick. You can see part A, we are referencing the laws that are in state law, and it says Teach NJ, Achieve NJ, and any successor law in case there's a new law that happens. Notice the support staff language includes a requirement that they get written feedback prior to March 15th, so they're not evaluated like in May and then terminated in June or whatever. And those 3 statements at the bottom are the additional pieces that we wanted to hold on to from our language that go above and beyond Teach NJ. So that was the agreement. This is what we accepted. You can see being able to write a rebuttal, that you can bring an association representative with you to those meetings, which is not required by any law. And that staff members have a right to discuss evaluations with administration if they want to. So those things are not protected by state law, but now they're protected by our contract, or they continue to be protected by our contract. So I think that's good. This was kind of a last minute addition that was part of what pushed the board to accept the deal this summer. This was kind of the last piece that was able to push it over the finish line. So sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Okay. So all 4 of these proposals from the Board of Ed are linked. The Board of Ed had contended or claimed that they believe that staff members were leaving the building during their contractual day too often. And what they were looking to do was to try to curb this practice or behavior so that the staff would not be leaving the building as often as the Board of Ed claimed that they were. So this was what was in their original proposal.
Are you frozen, Dan?
You guys get the gist of it?
Okay.
And there you can see what we accepted. Now, this was it. This was the limit of the Board of Ed's proposals outside of what was their original salary proposal. And you can see, they were looking at our grievance. They were looking at seniority. They were looking at just cause. They were looking at taking away, deferred retirement and not counting, sick days upon retirement for, select number of members and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, the main reason why this was accepted is relative to what else the board was proposing. We believed as a team, and we're hoping that you guys will see it as well, that what we got in return for what we accepted in the board's proposal is above and beyond much more than what we gave to the board. Outside, contrary to the last round when it was salary only, we were surprised at the number of our proposals this round that the board accepted. And it's important to understand too, that these proposals that they accepted were included in the previous 2 rounds of negotiations. So after 3 rounds of bargaining, you're going to see what the board actually accepted this round. So understand that from our point of view, from our frame of mind, this was minuscule with respect to what we got in return.
And
Well,
just
and
a
I
couple
think-
things to chime in with on this, Dan, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Notice that there's 1 time per week by notifying that's already in there. Beyond that, it's really the administration. Honestly, the people that I've talked to are not as concerned as maybe at the district level or board level. Notice the last sentence in the professional staff one protects the coming in late and leaving early from the sidebar. And another thing that's I think beneficial in this is you'll notice with the ESP language. That it says duty-free lunch and at other unassigned times. Under the current contract, ESPs technically can only leave during lunch, but right now their lunch often isn't even 20 minutes. So this is protecting their ability to leave during their 55-minute block of time that they get at other times. Or if ESPs are done at 2:30, then at that time, it's just a matter of notifying your supervisor. Beyond any staff members can leave more than this, assuming the administration says that it's fine. So. We felt that this wasn't as, we could swallow this in return for what we got, kind of what Dan said before. Okay.
And then this was their initial salary proposal. Now, when it comes to the professional staff and the custodial maintenance staff, this would not have even covered our increments. So just to move all of the professional staff across the guide, we would have needed at least a 1.97% settlement. So the impact of this meant that we would either have to take a pay freeze, that there would be guide steps that would have to be devalued, or that we would not have any money to give to the members at the top of the guide based on the board's initial proposal. And this is contrary, and thanks to Lauren Watson, who I guess went through the painstaking time of listening to the board meeting. And it was on the February 16th board meeting that Mielek commented during that meeting that with respect to the new proposed budget, that they would need 3% in salaries to cover what they were going to bargain under contract. So they gave us this after he said at a board meeting publicly that they needed 3%. So, but again, it would, like I said, would not even have covered the increment for professional staff and the custodial maintenance. And again, this was only for the professional staff, custodial maintenance, ESP, secretaries. This didn't include, the stipends for any co-curricular, extracurricular coaching or anything like that. So it was just those particular guides. Okay, so what you'll see in our initial proposal, what was agreed to on April 22nd in that first tentative agreement, that's not included here because that was already agreed to. So we took those out of our initial proposal. So 1A, okay, what we were trying to do in this proposal was take back 1 in-service day because our opinion is that it's basically meaningless anyway. Obviously that it wasn't accepted by the board, but we did go to bat and take a swing. For 1B, we were attempting to push back the start of the school year to a later date. One, it's ridiculous that we had to work almost a month before we'd actually get our first paycheck. Given that we start earlier than other schools, there was issues with respect to childcare. When parents, we have to come to work and our kids are still staying at home. You're coming in August, and there was issues over the temperature and whether the air conditioning is going to be on or running and so forth. But that was the logic behind, those two proposals. But again, neither of those were accepted.
And just real quick, just so everyone's aware, the second one there with the start of the school year is actually not negotiable. So even if we had it in the contract, they could just ignore it. So including it is more of like sending a message more than anything either way. So even if they had accepted it, they could just change the start date of the school year. It's something that's called considered managerial prerogative. So they can start whenever the heck they want. So that's more of like a message than anything else as far as getting that in the contract. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
That's okay. All right, so the purpose of this proposal, which again wasn't accepted, was that the building VPs are already forgiven supervisory duties like lunch, directed study, and so forth. This was just the association's attempt to try to get the same for the executive vice president, but the board wasn't open to accepting it. Okay, so with respect to absences and leaves, the purpose behind the first one, Article 7.A.1, that we've had problems in the past with members not getting word back on their personal day requests, and we pointed out that it's just a matter of professional courtesy, that people need to know whether they're going to get that request approved for planning purposes and so forth. For B, Article 7.A.2, we were trying to add family illness days, and you can see on the next slide that that will be accepted in modified form. It is worth noting that that was something that on the survey, the negotiation survey, one of the common concerns among the members was to have a little bit more flexibility with respect to the leaves of absences, particularly sick days. There were suggestions that we have paid time off days, that we have family illness days, and so they just wanted a little bit more latitude in terms of using it. For C, we were trying to get an increased number of bereavement days, and also that days that would not necessarily be consecutive. And the reason behind that is a lot of times, depending on where loved ones live, you might have to travel, which cuts into the bereavement time that you're allotted. You might have to plan for the viewing and the funeral arrangements and so forth. You might be the executor to the will, and you're going to have to deal with the legal paperwork and all of that. So, and some of that might not be done, until weeks or months later or whatever. So it wasn't to be consecutive, but also, just to give you a little bit more days, that you can use, for all of those aforementioned reasons. But that was not accepted by the board either. For D, the purpose of this was that the contributions for health benefits, if you are on an unpaid leave of absence, but you still want to have coverage for your health benefits, that it shouldn't be all at once. That's a financial hardship when you have to pay it out in one lump sum. And whatever arrangement is you come to with the employer, it should be mutually agreed upon. It should be somewhat equitable as far as how you're going to arrange to have those payments and so forth, because you're not getting paid, you're on unpaid leave. So that was the purpose of that proposal. Okay, so this was the modified version of the family illness day proposals that was accepted. And notice, you do not have to convert any of your sick days into family illness days. You have the option of doing it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to.
Hold on, Dan, it's personal days. So
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant.
yeah,
Personal,
so at the end of every year, you'll have the option of up to those 3 personal days you have, that any that you haven't used, you can either have them convert to sick days, which is what happens now, or you can have them become family illness days that you have the flexibility to use for yourself or your family member, and you can save them up as much as you want. Just bear in mind that those are not, don't accumulate, that they do accumulate, but you can't use them for payout at the end. So before you leave the school, you're going to want to make sure, if you're going to retire, you want to make sure you use those days up before, you retire. But theoretically, you could save up as many as you have the time to, at least if you've been through, a few years. So.
And again, and not that it's been an issue, but you do not have to, if you do decide you want to convert some of these to family illness, you don't have to worry about using your sick day to stay home if you have a sick kid, or if a family member's ill or whatever, because technically those sick days are only supposed to be used by you. You can't be using it to stay home with your kids and so forth. And in the past, when that's all you have, if it comes to that, then that's what those days would have to be used for. So this just gives you a little bit more flexibility with respect, to how you want to use those days. Okay, so with Steve, this was your spiel. Do you want to go?
Yeah,
over
so
this?
let me just, this was an attempt to give professional staff some flexibility as far as when they're giving help, so that you could, give help in the morning instead of the afternoon. And the language as I wrote it also would basically get rid of CNI time. It was certainly a big ask, and they were not okay with doing this. But one thing that I want to mention is that we even tried to get them to accept that if someone gives help in the morning, that they could leave early that day, and they weren't even willing to accept that. So some of you may be giving help in the morning. I just want you to understand that when you do that, the board doesn't value that enough to give you time back. So I will say our recommendation is that there's no reason you should be giving help in the morning. You're not paid to give help in the morning. They're not going to recognize that by letting you leave early. In fact, they said, they doubted that any students would even take advantage of that. So that's how out of touch they are. So our recommendation is to no longer give help in the morning under really any circumstances. We won't force anybody to do that. Obviously, it's not like we're working to rule or something, but that the board does not accept that as something valuable enough to give you time back. So anyway,
Okay.
that's all I have with that. If you guys have questions about the specifics, we can go through that at some later time, but we don't have to go into the weeds of all of it at this point. They didn't accept it, so.
All right, now, even though this was not accepted, the administration has kind of given the impression that this may be a possibility, that as far as achievement, and that there might be more to come with respect to this proposal, but it was not agreed to, at least as part of this round of negotiations or bargaining.
Yeah, the issue was that they really wanted to have an in-person back to school night this year, and they didn't want to do whatever, but there's a possibility in the future there might be maybe an in-person, and also prepare a video or something, and that would count as 2 of your nights. So you would just have to come for one night and then make a video, and that will be it. But that's not for sure yet. We'll have to see what plays out, but they didn't accept this at this point anyway.
All right, so this refers to faculty meetings, and the way the MOA is written now, it's a little bit unclear, a bit vague as to when these meetings can actually start. And based on when they start, that's going to impact when they end. And the issue again comes up with childcare, if you got to pick your kids up from school, and so forth. And we brought up that if they have a loaded agenda for a faculty meeting, regardless of when that meeting starts, if they haven't gone through that agenda by 3:10, there's no reason why they can't table the items on the agenda that we did not get to at a particular meeting until the next meeting. And that's kind of connected with the next proposal. And again,
So
this is for
just so
some
you
of the
guys know,
faculty
right
meetings.
now, sorry.
You want me to go back?
No, you're good. I was just going to say right now what the contract basically says is that the meeting can last for up to an hour. So theoretically, they could hold a meeting starting at, or they're supposed to try to end the meeting within an hour. So they could start the meeting at 2:35 and end it at 3:35. Most of the time, staff meetings do not run that late, but our intention was to make it line up with the end of the regular school day so that people have some peace of mind as far as getting out of the school and getting to their activities they have after the day. They were not willing to accept any more restrictions on on the length of the meetings or when they start or whatever.
Now, you'll notice that the board didn't accept this proposal, but what's interesting is that the last round, the board, and you see the bottom line with the word shall, they had suggested that they might be open to softer language than shall, and that any member that has to leave earlier might be able to make arrangements with the administration, in those cases where they're not able to stay for the full length of the meeting if the meeting runs over or whatever. So they were open to it last round, but for whatever reason, this round, they did not accept it. Now, this one they did accept. And this proposal is just based on the fact that lead teachers are required, that their job actually does require quite a bit of time, investment and so forth throughout the day. So that's why they would not be assigned a duty. And again, this was accepted.
And the administration has been kind of using this as a complaint as to why they can't cover study halls and stuff. Just so you're aware, that is ridiculous, because we're only talking about a couple of lead teachers that actually have study halls, because the way the schedule is. The reason they don't have anyone to cover study halls is because there are very few, because of the rotating schedule. There's only a few people that actually can cover study halls. It's only science teachers and a couple of math and English. So they've used it as a reason to justify big study halls and stuff, but that has really nothing to do with it. There really are only, I think it's 4 people in the district that were taken out of those study halls because of this provision. But anyway, it won't technically go into effect until the contract is ratified by both sides, obviously. You're good, Dan.
Okay. All right, so with respect to ESPs, this proposal, as you can see, was accepted. And again, the intent and purpose of this was just so that ESPs would have advance notice of their duties. Again, it's just a professional courtesy so that they can plan and prepare. But the board did agree to this.
I can jump on this because this is a weird one. So the intent here is to when they switch the rotating drop block schedule, the way that the contract says breaks and lunches are supposed to be for ESPs doesn't work because they're supposed to have 1 30-minute lunch and 2 15-minute breaks. This letter K here is what's happening in practice, is my understanding. A few years ago, the Voorhees administration tried to alter this so they could take away all the extra prep time. The board was not willing to accept this because, I don't know, I think they thought that we were changing something. But what's happening in practice is that the ESPs are getting K anyway. The one thing to be aware of is technically, because of the way that it was combined, the ESPs are, my understanding is you are not getting a full lunch, those of you who are in class, but you do get a longer break time because of the 55 minutes. So if you have concerns about the length of your lunch or anything else, reach out to us and we'll talk to Barb and the grievance committee to see if this is something that we want to pursue. But they are in violation by not giving you the full 30-minute lunch. However, you are getting that big 55-minute break most days. So if that's okay with you, that's fine. But we were just trying to get it put specifically in the contract, but they weren't willing to accept that.
Is that it?
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay. So this wasn't accepted, which I don't quite understand because it's not going to be a tremendous amount of money. But the reason for this proposal was that any ESP that does not have a bachelor's degree needs to retain a substitute certificate. And those substitute certificates have to be renewed periodically. So given that, ESPs are not making a boatload of money to begin with, that, they shouldn't be required to pay for the renewal of these sub certificates, which are required in order for them to work here. But again, the board did not accept this proposal. Okay, this one was accepted. So this is already listed under Schedule G, the ESP salary guide. Steve, I guess you would know more about this, about what happened up at Voorhees High School. The admin tried to add 30 minutes, I guess, to the ESP day without additional compensation. This was a few years back. And it was because of this provision, I guess, that they weren't able to do that, right? So the purpose of this is just kind of what, prevent them from attempting that or succeeding in that in the future. I don't know if he's there. But anyway, that was the purpose for this, and this was accepted. All right, so they didn't accept this one, but this was just because custodians are often expected to pick up the workload of people who are out on any given day. So this was our attempt to prevent that practice from taking place, but the board did not accept this proposal. Now, this one was accepted, but in modified form. So you can see, and the purpose of this was so that second shift custodians don't have to work late the day before these holidays. Now, you have the option, though, of working the first shift. You don't have to. If you still want to work the second shift, you have the option of doing that as well. So that was the modification, is that you just have that option. You're not required to do it. This one as well was accepted in modified form. The intent of this, it was more of a safety issue. This way, if there's at least 2 employees for overtime hours, if they do ask one custodian to cover a specific part of the building, there is still someone else who's working that shift who can continue to do the work or to roam in other parts of the building and so forth. So it's really a safety or security issue. And the modification again was that a minimum of 2 custodial maintenance employees shall be assigned. Okay, this was accepted. So one of the things that this does is it simplifies the language in addition to adding additional vacation days if you upon completion of 20 full years of employment from the date of hire. So you do gain additional vacation days, but the simplification, the way the contract is worded now, they base the allotment of additional vacation days on the anniversary date of hire and the current contract. So the way the language is written now, let's say if a custodian was hired between January 1st and June 30th, they would have to work longer in terms of days in order to be eligible for additional vacation days compared to a custodian hired between July 1st and December 31st. Hypothetically, let's say a custodian's hired on January 1st. They would have to work an additional year in order to be eligible for additional vacation days compared to a custodian that was hired just 1 day prior on December 31st, which is absolutely absurd. So that was why we included this in the contract, and you can see that the board accepted this proposal. These were not accepted. We were looking to increase the boot allowance and ear protection and add snow boots to the list of reimbursable purchases for the custodial maintenance staff, but they didn't accept that. All right, now, Steve, you can chime in here. I know you have here that it wasn't accepted, but
So
was this part
this
of the
was
tentative
intended-
agreement on May 20, or on April 22nd, though?
no, okay. So this was intended to match with the thing. So that the one that about summer hours that was accepted in the initial stuff on April 22nd, this is meant to match with that because it kind of reinforces. This seems to be kind of in contradiction with the summer language, and we try to get them to fix it, but they wouldn't. They wouldn't accept this, but it was meant to match with something that they did accept. So I don't understand why they didn't, but they just didn't. So I don't know.
Okay,
But that's the way it goes.
all right. Now, proposal U, I want to actually give credit to, this language was drafted verbatim by Joanne Cobb. So she had the opportunity to write this language and was willing to do that. And we did include it in our set of proposals, albeit the board did not accept it. But there was, just a demonstration of the input that we're looking for from members when it comes to drafting or crafting our proposals. V was accepted. And, part of it was, let's say a secretary, and this was also from the last round, because I guess it was to protect the secretaries from being forced to come in on days when the school was closed, which has always been past practice. But I guess in the previous round, or maybe in one of the previous rounds of bargaining, the secretaries had heard that they were going to be required to come in when school was closed. That Bender said that he wanted the campus, the district office, to be open. And we brought up, well, if it was brought up to our attention, and then we just forwarded, brought it to the attention of the board, that if the secretaries are forced to report, on days the school is closed, will administrators be forced to report as well? Or for that matter, would security personnel be forced to show up? Because if not, then it was a safety and security issue. The campus is supposedly open, and we have members that would be on staff that would be working, but there would be no administration, no security on campus, if something were to take place. But again, that was accepted by the board. And this was also accepted by the board. Now, the reason is because this is tied to the language of the custodians. The language, when it came to the allotment of additional vacation days, was the same. It was identical for the secretaries as it was for the custodians. So it made sense, if we're going to change that language for the custodial and maintenance staff, then, why not change it for the secretarial staff as well? And the board did agree to this. And this was also accepted by the board. And in the past, there were issues with custodians in particular, where they would put in personal day requests and they would not be given an answer right away when it came to those requests. And then what happened was, last minute, their requests would be denied because later requests would be put in by members who had more seniority than them. So here you are, you put in a request, you're waiting for a response. And in the meantime, you've got to plan and do all those things. And then, last minute, despite whatever you've planned, you were denied that request. So, which again is a little bit ridiculous. Okay, this was accepted too. This was more so for clarification than anyway. That's how it's arranged currently. We just wanted the sections to match up. And again, those columns, they're based on whatever your skills would be, your responsibilities, your workload. And part of this too is just to prevent the assignment of additional work or expectations, just by delineating the nature of the work within each job type or job category. And the board, as you can see, they did accept this.
And everybody in our association is considered either an administrative secretary or school specialist, which are column 2 on the guide. There's nobody who's in column 1 or 3 anymore in our association.
Okay, this was also accepted, and this was brought up in previous rounds as well. There were some secretaries that had voiced concern about possibly losing seniority if and when they were transferred from one office or area to another, due to the fact that there might already be secretaries working in the new area or new office who had been there longer than the secretary who had been transferred. So overall, you might have been working in the district as a secretary, in different offices or different areas, you might have seniority, but with respect to that particular job type or category, maybe there was someone there that worked longer than you, and the concern was, well, if I get shifted to an area where I don't have that much seniority, do I lose my seniority? So this was simply intended to protect their seniority. And this was accepted in the tentative agreement that was reached with the board on May 20th. So that was part of that tentative agreement. So with respect to health benefits, there are quite a few proposals here regarding health benefits, and we have rationale and what the intent and purpose of each of them were. But just know that in a private plan, every aspect of coverage is negotiable. And one of the things that we received at a previous coordinating bargaining council, this was a few years back, was best practice when it came to contract language as it pertained to health benefits. So it was just a checklist of things that you want to include in your contract if it is in fact negotiable. So we added this, and this has been in our proposals every single round since we received that best practices list during that CBC council. So the first one, the equal to or better than, it's just stronger language than similar to. Aside from that, some of these proposals were meant to, we want to maintain our benefit levels. We want to make sure there's no lapses in coverage. We want to make sure that we can kind of contain or limit the out-of-pocket expenses and the costs, whether it be, through deductions or co-pays or co-insurance or whatever. Those are some of the things that we were looking to do. There's other proposals here with respect to health benefits that we're also looking for. And by the way, down at the bottom where it talks about disruption reports, utilization reports, the Zealous report, we have information with respect to what those reports actually do and all of that, but I'll save you guys all the pain. If you have a question about it, obviously you can ask, but those are specific reports. Now, in this one, number one, we would just want to keep the cost down. Number two, that's just so your benefits could be accurately calculated. Three, again, is so there's no lapses in coverage. We want to make sure that new employees that are hired in the district are eligible for coverage immediately. Four, is just so that members can meet their deductible sooner and their coverage can kick in sooner. Number five, is just so we're not paying more than what the plan is actually worth. Number six is so that we're not paying for benefits or coverage that we're not actually receiving. And number seven, the idea with retro is in some cases, depending on what employee contributions are to health benefits, what they have to pay back in retro for health benefits is actually greater than what they receive in retro pay. So it's actually a net loss in terms of out of pocket, just because of the retro for health benefits. Number eight, that's just so the arrangement is equitable, between the employer and the employee. And these are the last two for the health benefits. We tried to get an opt-out waiver for members who are not covered by the district. The board was not open to that, obviously, even though that probably would save them money as well. And for H, the members have a right to know how their health benefit contributions are calculated and what type of level and what type and level of health benefits they're actually paying for. So that was the justification behind H. But again, none of those were accepted. But again, going into this round with, was it chapter 44, that you had the option, right, of enrolling in chapter 44, not staying within chapter 78. The state kind of took care of a good chunk of what the issues with respect to health benefits have been in the last few rounds. But health benefits wasn't something that really was discussed this time around. Okay, so you can see in our initial proposal what our salary proposals were. They did accept the one with respect to changing the pay days and when we're going to get paid. And the rationale behind this is, the 10 months employees aren't going to have to work so many days before they actually get their first paycheck.
And that's already been implemented, as you all know.
Yeah.
This was our initial salary proposal, which was the 3.5% for each year, which we knew was a little on the high end. And if you go to the next one, Dan, this was the salary proposal that they accepted. So they accepted a 3% raise for each year, which is right around where county averages. Retro pay, which will come out once everything's ratified, and schedules B, C, and I, which are coaching, Schedule B positions, and the coaching activities and those kind of things, advisor positions, and also the hourly rates for curriculum and what's the other one? Home instruction and stuff. Those are going up by 1.5%.
Now, when we got the memorandum of agreement from the Board of Ed, they did not include Schedule I. However, they did agree in entirety to our last counter proposal that we sent to them back in August. And in that counter proposal, it did include Schedule I with that 1.5% increase. So we clarified with the board, it was an oversight, it was an omission, and Schedule I is included along with Schedules B and C when it comes to that increase. So, and one of the things that was brought to our attention, with respect to the importance of the retroactive pay, the reason why it's necessary is without retroactive pay, there's really no incentive for the board to try to settle in a more timely fashion, because the later that we do settle, whatever we settle at as a percentage isn't actually that percentage. It's less than what we settled for. So that's why retro is so important, because they'll just drag this thing out as long as possible and they'll end up saving money as a result. All right.
So we're gonna go through the guides, but the document that I uploaded just before has the guide, so don't feel like you have to view them as we're going through. And I also have another document that you can figure out your own salary that I'll show you after we do this. So we don't have to take a long time with this, Dan, because everyone
Sure.
has these guides. So we can kind of go through this quickly. And then, so this is the base year. This is the current salary guides. So we have year one, which is this one. But again, I sent you
But
that.
Steve, do you
document, so
want, are you drawing? Do you want me to stop sharing and then you can just be the co-host and share it on your screen?
it's not, hang on, it's not letting me share right now. I think I'm not logged in right. But are you guys okay pulling up the guides yourselves? That we don't necessarily have to go through all of them. I actually have one other document that is the one that you guys are probably hoping for, where you can figure out what your salary is. So maybe I'm going to upload this, and maybe Dan, do you want to? For some reason I can't share right now. Do you want to pull this up so I can show people? Oh wait, what's going on?
Yeah, you want me to stop sharing?
Yeah, hold on. No, for some reason it's not sharing this document. I don't know why.
Well, I'm sharing my screen right now, so.
No, that's not it. I'm trying to upload the document, but it's not.
Okay.
All right. Is there anything else you want to add, Dan, while I'm trying to do this?
No, I mean, you just go through these too.
All right, that's fine. I
These are
just want
already
to.
up.
Yeah, let me see if maybe I could do it through Google or something. Sorry, you go ahead, Dan. You can keep going. I'm going to try to pull up the other thing so you guys can access it.
All right, so I'll leave it up a little bit. You guys can take a look at the guide and then I'll just go to the next one. Again, these are all going to be provided. You can go back, you can take another look at them and see where you would fall, what your salary increase is going to be, in each year of the contract or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and advance to year 2.
Here. Where is it?
And just give you a moment if you want to just kind of make a note of what your salary is going to be. based
But
on
Dan,
what's
I
going
sent
on.
these to everybody, so there's no I don't know if anybody really needs to. These were already sent to everybody.
All right, well, what do you want me to do then?
You're good. I'm just trying to see if I can get this to. Here, you know what I'm going to do here.
I'm going to
Um,
stop sharing.
All right. Here, I know what I'm going to do. Hang on. I have an idea.
There.
One sec. I have a problem solving step. Other than that, does anyone have any questions while I'm doing this that Dan or I can answer? Either in the chat or out loud. No, hold on a sec. I have a genius idea, as my son would say. All right, hang on. I'm going to upload this so you guys can access it.
Hey, Steve, can you just tell everybody that you put the guides in the chat? I think
Yeah, they're in the chat. So
Okay.
if you go to the chat, the guides are in there. You just have to pull up the file.
you
I
have
just-
to like
I have
you
a-
have to like download it to your computer or like save it to your
Yes.
computer and then it opens from the chat.
Yes. Yes. Like Marielle said. Let me see if I can do this too. This might also be easier. This should be a link to them, and then you can pull them up later if any of you can't access them now. So that's the language memorandum of agreement, that link. This is the one including the salary guides that I'm sending now in case you can't pull it up, if you can't download it. These are going to the NHVEA site. So Matt, when you post stuff later, these files are already on there. And then this is the worksheet that you can use. It should download from there. Okay. What else is there? The other thing I was going to post, I think I sent this to Aaron before. And there's no reason for all of us to sit when we're doing this. I just want to make sure you guys are understanding about what's going on. Oh, that's not the one I wanted.
So Steve, while you're doing that, do you want me to just go ahead and real quick give a rundown of how the whole ratification thing is?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so basically, the Board of Ed is just there, I believe, waiting on our ratification vote to see whether or not the members of the association approve of the memorandum of agreement. So provided we approve the memorandum of agreement and the Board of Ed approves the memorandum of agreement, at that point, then what we would do is we would, once the changes and the modifications are added to the successor agreement, the new contract, then it's forwarded to us. And as a committee, then what we do is we go through that entire contract, page by page, provision by provision, line by line, and we make sure that everything in that contract is written the way that was agreed upon, that nothing that was not agreed upon is taken out, that everything that was agreed upon is put in, that the language is exactly what it should be, whether it was in the existing contract or in the memorandum of agreement. We go through and we make sure that everything is the way it should be. At which point then, once that memorandum of agreement is signed by members of both parties, then that memorandum of agreement is going to go into effect. If for some reason the membership decides not to approve of the memorandum of agreement, then the negotiations team is essentially disbanded. Everything that has been bargained and agreed to at this point is now off the table. There is nothing there, and a new negotiations committee would have to be formed, and they have to start with scratch from the Board of Ed. So that would be the repercussions of a no vote when it comes to the agreement. And you have to imagine too how that would be received by the Board of Ed, given all the work that we've done with the Board of Ed and we've come to the agreement, and it's not approved. So not swaying anybody in terms of how to vote, but it's important that everybody understands, what the repercussions would be, if the vote does go a certain way. I miss anything, Steve?
No, that's pretty much it. So that's it. That's what we agreed to. We feel that I could speak for the team when I say I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish working with the board and on our own. Other than that, thanks, Dan, for all your hard work. You put way more work than what you get paid for. So thanks for that. The vast majority of stuff that's in there is mainly because you busted your butt to get it done. So thank you.
Well, I'll agree to disagree. I think it was everybody. So, but thank you.
So the next steps are going to be, we're going to have a vote next week. We'll send out the specific information for that. Erin has a link that she can post. If any of you are comfortable voting now, you can do that, but we will send out that tomorrow sometime with a specific timetable. So we're hoping to get the vote done by the middle of next week. We're also going to have some opportunities for people to vote in person on a paper ballot if that's easier for you. So we'll send all that information out tomorrow. But other than that, Erin, do you have that link that Lauren created, or do you want me to?
Yep, I just posted it
All right, cool.
in the
So
chat.
don't feel like you have to do this now, but if you are comfortable voting, feel free to. We will keep voting open until I'd say next Wednesday. I don't know other than that. We will have voting. If you have questions, come and see some of us, but I also posted a document if you have other questions you want to go. I have a Google Doc if you have other questions that come up as you go. If you can't figure out the spreadsheet, go ask Matt Morella. He's the best person with spreadsheets in the district. Go bother Matt. He can help you with it. I was kind of tongue in cheek, but he could help you, or you can come see me.
All right,
And as
again,
Lauren
sorry-
said,
Sorry if it
the-
took
and
so
as-
long, everybody, but there was a lot to go over this time, so
Yeah.
a lot of moving parts.
for sure. And as Lauren said, the link that you do for voting will first take you to a form where you sign in. So we have a record of who voted. And then it goes to an anonymous link where you actually do your voting. So the fact that you logged in is separate. You putting your name is not attached to your vote individually. It's just separate, but we have to keep track of who's voted. And that it's only, members voting and that kind of thing. So you're welcome, everyone. Any other questions before we go? Okay, you're welcome, everyone. Anything else from anyone on the team that we missed, or? All right, thanks for your time. This video, if you missed anything, this video will be sent out along with the presentation. We'll have to send that to Matt, and all the other documents that went out, we'll add that to the website. So thank you. Or
Thank
Matt
you,
will add it
everyone.
to
Have
the
a great
website.
evening.
Thank you. Enjoy your night.